Welcome to the Wisdom Circle. To subscribe or follow us on your favorite podcast platforms, please visit us at www.thewisdomcircle.com.
So let's go on to 28.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that mountain.
Yeah.
Climb.
So the games are coming to LA for the third time. The LA organizing committee is chaired by Casey Wasserman, who's no stranger to anybody in media and entertainment. Casey is, just an incredibly dynamic guy. He chaired the bid that was awarded to the city of LA back, I believe, in 2018 or late 2017, maybe. Originally, LA was bidding on 2024, but the IOC awarded 24 to Paris because it was the 100th anniversary of Paris hosting the games, so it made a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same point, they said, would you like the games in 28? And LA said, of course. And they actually had a 4-year head start. Most organizing committees typically get the games, 6-7 years in advance. LA had, call it 10. And so the first bunch of years have been great because LA hasn't had to focus on a lot of the typical sort of organizing committee, how many widgets do you need to build a tent to create, a media village. They knew it was going to be a no-build games from the get-go because they have all of the venues they need and more. They knew that, the athlete village would be at UCLA, the media village will be at USC. They know where the opening and closing ceremonies will be. I believe that's been announced at what's now SoFi Stadium. So they were able to focus more on sort of the strategy and how do they want to make LA different. And one of the big differences is we've worked hand in glove with LA for the first time to bring media opportunities to Team USA and LA 28 sponsors together
at the same time.
At the same time. In the past, what would happen is the USOC would go out and sell a Team USA partnership. If it was a US-based games, the organizing committee would sell their own version of a partnership, and then NBC would come in and sell media. And they'd go 3 different times to, Anheuser-Busch, and, put their hand out and say, it's more, it's more, it's more. Right. And there was no synergy really in what they were offering. I think now what you can point to, and we've done some really interesting things, Delta was our first founding partner. Some of the things we've done for Delta, where we're integrating on air what we're doing for them on the ground. Really, it's great because if you're doing something, on the ground, the only people that really see it are those that are there. Right. But if all of a sudden, you've got a big NBC camera shining a big bright light on it, it blows up in a bigger way.
Sure.
So that partnership has worked really well. We've gone out together. We've solicited and won a number of founding partners and then some tier 2 partners. We've got more work to do on that. Typically,
how's their team going? I know that I've just read some headlines of people coming and going a little bit. And Tony,
I think that's fairly typical for an organizing committee. Casey just brought in a guy named Reynold Hoover, who is the new CEO of LA 28. Incredibly impressive guy. Reynold is a retired 3-star general from the U.S. Army. He retired and then went on to, I believe he was deputy director of FEMA. So he knows a thing or two about logistics and organizing, to achieve goals. And when you think about what these LA games will be, I've heard the LA 28 folks talk about it. It's like organizing 7 Super Bowls a day for 17 straight days. So you need somebody that knows something about logistics and security, and this is where Reynolds will thrive. Is my suspicion.
FIFA should hire him for 26 World Cup because they're going to have a Super Bowl every day all over the country in multiple markets. That won't be funny.
Multiple countries too, right?
Lord, it's another story for another day.
Hey, Dan, let me ask you a question on that sort of consolidation. And it sounds like everyone's in the room, but was that sort of stimulated, not to be controversial here, by, I know there was some advertisers in the past that would do the official category, but not really step up to the broadcast. One being my old company, as I recall, after I had left. So was that like, okay, wait a minute, you're not going to become an official category sponsor and then not support the broadcast? Was that part of the stimulation, or was it just smart marketing synergy?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest, Tony. And I think you can point to others that really don't want to pay for the IP, the rings, but feel like they can get everything they need out of the broadcast.
So it's both ways.
Yeah, it works both ways. In our case, we just thought it was a more interesting offer to go to an advertiser and say, would it make sense if we understood what you were trying to do with the IP and we were able to amplify it and vice versa? The conversation started shortly after LA won the bid because, with LA, you've got a guy like Casey, and he is the most commercially oriented organizing committee head that has ever lived. Casey likes to make deals and good deals. And so I know Casey and Mark Lazarus and Gary Zankel got together not probably, but I know for a fact during the Pyeongchang games. So in early 2018 to start, thinking about how could this be done the right way. And we signed that deal about a year later. And, 2019, we hit the market together.
Yeah. That's great. That's the way to do it. Because it's always been that yin and yang of, I just gave them $7 million for the logo and blah, blah, blah. So you've cut that off at the past. Well, that's great. That's great. Good luck with all that.
Thank you.
And then I think a little bit of, trying to let some of the viewers who are mid-career, early career, understand what a guy like you and an organization like Comcast NBC Sports or NBC Universal and Telemundo, I always feel compelled to throw that in there.
Yeah, me too.
Would like to see the logo up a little bit more during the LA Olympics. It would be NBC, Peacock, USA, boom, nothing. But that was me texting Eli, where's the Telemundo logo? What do you look for when you hire any level? I mean, I don't know, you're not going to hire a first timer, but what is the company, how do they approach bringing on new people, promoting people, and recruiting people from other places?
Yeah. Well, I think the business is in such sort of a dynamic shift right now. We've gone from a business that is, almost 100% content driven to a business that is, I would say, bifurcated. You've got, big content vehicles that still remain like the Olympics and certainly the NFL and sports in general. And then you've got this notion of how do we use technology to reaggregate what's become disaggregated audiences, layer some data on top of it, and now rather than selling, women 18 to 49, we're selling moms with 3+ kids in a minivan lease that's turning over in the next 6 months. And that's what Toyota wants to buy. And that's fine. That's where the business is headed. It's evolving. So because you've got this bifurcated business, and there have always been changes in our business, to me, what's most important is I call them intellectual athletes. I want people that can play a lot of different positions on the field, because there's no doubt that what you hire them for is going to be different than what they're doing for you a year, 2, 3 years from now.
Wow.
And so, you want intellectual athletes. And to me, the foundation of that is curiosity. I want people that are really, really interested in not just our business, but the business of our business. So if I'm talking to Taco Bell, I really need to understand more than just what's happening at headquarters, but what are the franchisees really caring about? What are their key issues? How can I solve their problems? Because if I can do something there, then sure, the CMO at Taco Bell is going to want to talk to me a little bit more. So that notion of business curiosity really matters to me. And then, the other thing is integrity, and we all say it and we think we know it, but like it's got to be 100% integrous people that we're hiring. My father-in-law, who's retired from our business, a guy named Jim Watson, who was, a longtime sales guy,
Yeah.
ABC primetime back in the Happy days, and then USA Network and a couple of other things. When I first got into the business, and I got in unassociated to him, the one thing he said to me is, he goes, "You only have one reputation, and if you screw it up, it's never going to get better. It's only going to go downhill." And
Tony and
I really believe
about
that.
Brand, like your name's a brand. We're both
Yeah.
always like, that's funny because Jim was a great guy.
Yeah.
Not funny, just I think that's the way you do well.
Yeah, and I think it still matters, and it matters whether you're selling programmatically through the trade desk, or you're selling, a $100 million deal on the Olympics. It all matters.
Yeah.
People only want to do business in general with who they trust. They'll do business if they don't, but that's only because they have to. And they won't do it again and again and again. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And they're not trying to grow the business with someone like that they don't trust, but they are trying to give money to people they trust more. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly. No, it's good. So integrity and brand and intellectual athletes. I like that term. That's really good. But you need that. You're right. And with everything that Z's and X's and millennials have been through, and social media and remote and hybrid and working in their pajamas or going to the office, how has that impacted that look for intellectual athletes? And are they athletic enough to get on a subway and come to the office, or just to go to the fridge and pull out another Diet Coke?
Yeah, it's really hard, and I feel for them as much as sort of us as people that have to find great talent. It's hard to stand out in a Chat GPT world. Anybody can come up with a right answer, or what seems like a right answer. I think it's an interesting little experiment. So during these Olympics, we set up a war room, at 1221, which is across the street from 30 Rock, for our sales and sales planning and, ad ops teams. And, for 17 straight days, people come into the office, and the hours are long, and it's hard work. And, it on the surface seems like it might be too much for people, but, and a lot of them are younger people, right? New in their careers. Right. But the feedback is they love it, because there's a camaraderie. There's a learning through osmosis. It's a fire hose of information coming at people. So it's an environment that I think people learn and love, and it just proves to me that being together is better than being apart. Yes, there's convenience, and I get it. I can save a lot of time on a Zoom call rather than traveling to, Minneapolis to meet with somebody, but you just don't get as much done. I believe that in my heart. And I think collaboration.
Yeah. There was a commercial years and years and years ago about a manager just with a pocket full of tickets to on United Airlines. And he's like, I want you to go out and see the customer. And I feel, because I do know, that those younger generations have other things they've grown up with that are challenging, et cetera. But I don't think they know what they're missing. And that's the weird part. Like, I think, and then we just get accused of being dinosaurs and old folks who grew up at a different time. It really does matter. And you can't convince someone who's never experienced it that it does until they do. And then maybe it, billows out a little bit, and they say, I'm going to go in a little bit more often. That was fun. I kind of missed that vibe in that group.
I mean, a lot of the learning that I got when I was first starting out in sort of my career, I would call it like learning through osmosis. It wasn't that I was attending a specific meeting. I was literally sitting, listening, and again, that curiosity, you ask the questions afterwards, and that's how you learn. The hard part with the Zoom environment is you're not in on some of those calls. You can't even bother to listen because you don't even know what's going on. It's just harder.
Yeah. Exactly. Wow. Tony, you've been great listener.
Well, I haven't wanted to break the flow.
I'm sorry.
One of the things that's interesting on that little different twist from an advertiser negotiation standpoint, we used to always look at go do a negotiation in person. So we would fly to a city, Cincinnati Reds, Philadelphia Phillies, NBC, Fox, whatever, because it's a lot easier to say no to someone on a phone. It's a lot harder to do that face to face. And it also saves time. A quick anecdote. I won't name the network, but it wasn't NBC, but we were doing a 5-year deal. We came up to St. Louis. We had every head of sales, everybody, head of sports sales in the room. And the new head of sports sales took the deal and said, okay, we'll now go back to our office and think about your renegotiation or your counteroffer. And it was like, well, don't we have all the decision makers right here? Let's just, where you want to be. We know where we want to be. We spent 3 hours. We worked it out, shook hands. And I said, you know how long that would have taken if we had done it by phone? It would have taken 3 months. Yeah. So it's also a big time saver of efficiency because get rid of the theatrics, get rid of sort of the back and forth, sit in a room and come out with it. And that face-to-face, what to me was so much more powerful as an advertiser. And probably at the end of the day, the broadcaster, the team was happy because they did it in 3 hours, not 3 months.
Yeah.
All true. All right, so with a couple of minutes left, we did want to talk a little bit about a great comment you had about knowledge is a commodity and wisdom is rare. Talk about wisdom versus knowledge. I think that's one of the reasons we're here. Tony and I did the typical Google of what's the word mean, and time plus experience equals wisdom. And then Tony added a good third word, which is judgment. What's your kind of definition of the difference between knowing something and being wise?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, it's, I think we were just mentioning ChatGPT. Knowledge becomes a commodity really, really quickly in this world. Knowledge is just information and having access to it. Wisdom to me is the ability to apply knowledge through experience with a level of compassion and empathy. And I think those last two pieces, compassion and empathy, are really, really important because, being wise to me means having some sort of impact on people's decision and or life in a bigger, broader way. And
that's good.
And so, I use my experience and at this advanced stage in my career and you guys, you always come upon, it's rare when I come upon a situation where this isn't true. I recognize it. It's just dressed up differently. And you kind of have to undress the situation and then reapply for whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. And being able to do that only comes with experience. And being able to do that in a way that makes everybody feel good comes with that empathy and compassion. So that to me
that's really good.
Sort of where I go.
I think, Tony, I'll throw it to you last, we'll wrap. But I think the compassion and the empathy are only available when you have enough confidence in your own place and experience and time to not lose your temper, slam the door, but you don't have to pull a power play.
Yeah,
I'm the boss, that's why. I'm your dad, that's why. That never really works. So it does, but not well and for long. So I love those two words in there. It's good.
I think, for for all those that listen to this, to me, leadership needs to have soul. it's really easy to get away from that, particularly in big companies. And we've all worked for big companies. You've got, if you're a public company, you've got quarterly earnings, and that breaks down into monthly and how you're pacing this week. And it just, you lose.
What you do yesterday.
Yeah. And it's really easy to lose your soul in all of that. But at the end of the day, we're in a people business. We're in a human capital business. We create content, we monetize content. And if you don't have good people feeling good about themselves, you're not going to be as successful as you should be. And that, again, that comes from having some version of a soul as you lead. So
yeah.
it's not always easy. And I think you're right, Ray. It comes through a bit of confidence that, you know what you stand for and you're doing it for good reason.
Right.
But sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, that's true. Tony, take us home.
Yeah, no, I just on that topic, it's I always get kidded a little bit, Dan, is that I had these direct reports that all went on to do amazing things. Peter McLaughlin, who ended up the CEO of the Seahawks, Mark Lampe, who's still the CEO of the Jaguars, Steve Bargosian, who worked with you guys.
Yeah.
And they'll kid and say, well, Tony, what did you really do? But the point is, you have to have confidence to let your people help, ride the ship to port and be a team player. And you sort of said it, I'll just say it a different way, Dan. You're only a leader if people want to follow you. You don't have to remind people you're the leader. If you do, then you're probably not leading well. And I agree with you, and I know Ray does too, is business at the end of the day is about people. And when I would teach at NYU and advise at Columbia, I would say, just take yourself in your personal life. Who do you want to hang around with? Who do you trust? Who's authentic and honest? And that's who you want your buds to be. In the same breath, that's who you really enjoy working with as well. And if you can create that environment as a leader, then people will run through doors for you. And you really just want to get the job done collectively together and just, have it be a whole team effort. So it's all about people at the end of the day, I think.
Right. Great.
So, Dan, it was a pleasure. You educated. We were always not amazed, that sounds like, but when we do
everything,
we learn more, I think, than our guest host, because it's all about continual learning. And I think it's important, again, it's not about age. As I get older, I get more sensitive to it, but it's about attitude and style and working with people. That's really, you could be an old, boring 40-year-old, right? So we're always learning is the point, and we learned from you today.
Yeah, it was really great fun.
I'll finish where I started. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to come on. You guys are truly, and I'm not pandering, you're truly inspirational guys in our business. There are a lot of guys and gals like me who have looked up to you for a long time. And I'm thrilled you're doing this, because now we have a way to continuously connect. So thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
Good. And you've made our audience smarter too. So, serve the fan and the fan will serve you. So.
Great.
Thanks for being here. And
my pleasure.
We'll talk again.